I don't want to be in love with a girl, and it hurts. Okay, so back in high school, our last 2 years was a mandatory 2-year program on dual-enrolled college skills/trade courses. You can do from welding to nursing. I chose drafting architecture, and that's when I met a girl, Andrea. Not her real name. I had classes with her before this course and talked to her on rare occasions, but nothing special. In this class, we were spaced apart and then told to group up, and we just sat next to each other, and we talked and just clicked. It felt natural, and it would mainly be me and her that would really hang out. We had a group from our class. It was 5 including both of us, plus in addition 4 more from other classes, that the majority was 5 of us. Outside of that, we would chat in the school parking lot and text/call outside of school. Since we were in this class every day, we would see each other every weekday, and naturally I developed a crush on her. Months went by, and eventually she figured it out, but didn't say anything. More months passed, and we eventually talked about it and said she wasn't interested, but we still kept on being friends. Summer comes, and we found out we have to spend our summer in this course, so there literally isn't a break between us. More months pass, she develops crushes on other guys and tells me about it, and I try to act fine, but it hurt every time she mentioned it. I always felt jealous, and I knew it was unhealthy, but I still kept inside because I was still in love with her. After 2 years, it was eating me up. This was something else I forgot to mention. She lead me on, even though someone called her out on it, and completely denies the intention of leading me on, and not meaning to. With that information, she told me I was attractive, my voice was attractive, we flirted before, and make Sewell jokes. That last part was a big thing we used to do, and occasionally do it now. Another thing I forgot to mention was that we hung out so much and were together. A rumor spread that we were dating. It might have been also because we would walk each other, we argued a lot, and talked and laughed out loud. Once we graduated, she moved up 3 hours up north for college, but would come down here in the summer. During her first year of college, she would change into a typical college student. In high school, I saw her as an innocent girl who was silly, smart, and warm to be around with. She told me how she started drinking and going to parties and clubs, and my stomach turned a bit. One scenario I remembered was her finishing a huge project, then celebrating with her classmates and going to a karaoke club. I told her not to drink, and she promised not to. Later that night, I called her to see what's up, and she ended up getting drunk and hanging out with another guy. I tore me apart and couldn't sleep that night. She's her own person, and she can do it, but it hurt me so bad. Besides that, she mostly focused on her career. She didn't throw that away, but it hurt to see my image of her change. I knew that was selfish of me. It's horrible of me to keep that image. My buddy Parker, not his real name, was never really friends with Andrea, but was cool with her BC. We also had classes with her, and Andrea was also friends with Parker's GF at that time. I told Parker about my situation, and he told me straight up to leave her and let her be. I told him I can't, and it's easier to say and then to actually do it. A month or 2 later, Andrea and I talked and realized what was going on with me, and we both decided to take a break. It wasn't like we were dating, but that's what we decided. This was in January 2023. A couple months later, it was more normal for her to rarely text me, like telling me about a capybara at a zoo on her trip to Canada. And that's it, not even mentioning anything about her trip, just the fact that she saw a capybara in a Canada zoo. Anyways, while that period, we didn't really talk, and I felt so much better about not seeing her, and it almost kind of helped me. More months later, summer started to come by, and we started slowly talking more. She said we needed to make plans to hang out when she finally comes down here for the summer. We caught up, and she told me about her losing her virginity, and she has a BF, and it was gut-wrenching. We drove and ate out and hung out a good amount of times, even though I was really devastated. I talked to Parker, and I finally took his advice and slowly started to fade away from her. I started to slowly be dry and not continue convos. I hated ghosting, so I never did that. I just wanted to make convos stop early. Then it slowly became to not talking. She called me and told me about her experience at a club and how she met a dude on Tinder, and she was telling me how she made out with him at the club. She thought I would be upset, and I was, but I made it sound like it didn't affect me. I told her she'd do whatever the hell she wants, as long as she's safe. That was my realization and clarity. That was the last call I made with her. It's been a couple of months since I talked to her. During those couple of months, it helped me take care of my mental health, and I forgot about her. I reached out to an old coworker at night, and we started talking, and we started dating for a little bit. Things didn't last long, but at least I forgot about her. A few months later, she texted me. This was towards the summer again, and we slowly started talking again. We hung out, and that's when the beach incident happened. It sounds a lot worse than it was. So she drank before and told me how she wanted to get drunk with me. I drank before, and so I was okay with this. We planned to hang out. I bought the alcohol and chase her, and she bought the food. While we were talking in the car, waiting for our food to be ready, I caught up on a few things. I told her I had a girl for a little bit, and she got excited for me, but I told her it wasn't anything serious. We kept on talking for a bit, then headed to the beach. We struggled to walk to our area, and it was getting late. We got there at around 7, and it was starting to get dark. We forgot lights and speakers, but it was fine. Once we set everything up, we took our first shot and started talking again. It was a little awkward at first. We didn't have much to talk about, but the food was good and we barely ate, ordered too much. Once we kept on drinking, we started to feel a little tipsy, and we started laughing and being more open. I admitted my feelings. I told her I'm not into her anymore, and I don't want anything with her. I also told her how it affected me a few years ago, and how much she personally affected me and my life. We started ranting about other things, and at this point, we were both like 4 or 5 shots in, so we started to feel it. Her boyfriend called her, and our voices were slurring. This was the part where I started liking her less. She was telling her BF that we were at the beach drinking, and she was telling him she loves him and to not worry about me, and how I was a loser. She said it more in a joking manner, so it didn't really annoy me. We drank more, and at this point, we were pretty drunk. We somehow started talking about Sewell shit and what she does, into watches and all sorts of shit like that. After that, we were pretty drunk, and we were leaning into each other, then sat straight. I leaned in, and she leaned in, and we were touching noses at that point, and I don't remember what was said during that, but our lips were really close. We was grabbing my face, and it was like we phased back in, and she said it's getting late. It was around 11 p.m., and she started freaking out that we're going to get kicked out, and we're going to get into more trouble if they found out we're underage to drink. At this point, it became a blur of what happened. I remembered I blacked out, and I woke up a few minutes later on the sand floor by some random guy. Apparently, Andrea was taking our stuff back to my car, but was really struggling and saw a guy, and I'm not sure if he offered to help or vice versa. Anyways, he ended up helping us and helped me walk back to where the light is, and at this point, we were both too fucked up to drive. She was less drunk than me and managed to call Parker because he knew both of us, and she knew he was my best friend. Andrea and Parker have a strange situation. They can barely tolerate each other. Parker didn't really like her because of my whole situation and my feelings towards her. He went through a relationship that tore him apart by thinking something could have happened with him and a girl, and didn't want me to have to go through the same thing. As we were waiting, I ended up throwing up and passing out on the bench, and turns out that Parker brought another friend to drive my car. That friend took me back to Parker's place. That's why I don't get in trouble by my mom for being drunk. Parker took Andrea home, and they started talking. Originally, Parker wasn't too fond about picking us up BC. It was late, and he just arrived to his dad's house. And BC, he doesn't like Andrea very much. Andrea started the convo by crying and saying why he hates her. Then Parker says he doesn't. He just wants to have my back and doesn't want me to go through anything he has. He tried to explain his situation. Once Andrea got home, she called her BF or vice versa. I forgot. And they were yelling at each other. Parker and the other friend were looking at me in disappointment. I bought new clothes for a date with another girl, and my friend says I wore the clothes for the wrong girl. The next morning we woke up with pretty bad hangovers and barely remember what happened past a certain point. We asked how we were feeling, and that's pretty much it. After that, we hung out every now and then, and I tried to give her space, so she's out with her BF. Towards the end of the summer, she called me, and she was bawling her eyes out on the other end. Turns out that her BF dumped her, and she lost about a year with him. I tried to calm her down and took her for ice cream, and we just talked. I joked around with her to try to make her forget, but I could only help with so much. That's also when we started hanging out almost every week. This is the part where I realize even more why I don't want to be with her. She was crying a lot BC of her breakup, and 2 fucking weeks later, she asked me when do I think it's okay for her to get back on Tinder BC she wants to fuck. I can't believe a single word she said, and I honestly felt disgusted. I told her whenever she thinks she's ready. Even just typing this out makes me feel gross. We kept on going to the movies and eating and hanging for a while more. At one point, I asked if she wanted to drink again. BC, she went back to school, and she was down. I was planning to drink in backyard, but the rain had other ideas. I haven't drank since the beach incident, and that was roughly a little less than 2 months ago. I bought the alcohol, and she bought the food, and we both hated the alcohol. We tried drinking it but couldn't, so we settled with watching a movie. It's funny though, BC, she wanted a horror movie, and she hates horror movie. I put it on, smile by the way, and we sit there getting ready for it. It was at my house. I grabbed my blanket to cover us, and we're a good distance from each other, and I would get up every now and then to drink more. BC, I wanted to at least try to force some down. I only downed 3 juice mixes in 1 shot, and I didn't feel anything. They were spaced apart by for a while too. Later in the movie, we started snuggling closer, and she put her head on my shoulder, and I grabbed her hand during some intense moments, and we stayed like this for the rest of the movie. Nothing else happened. I hugged her before she left, and that was pretty much it. We kept on talking, and she told me about a guy on Tinder she started talking to. So she went on Tinder almost immediately after her year relationship. I was fine with it. It made me like her a lot less. After that, we kept on hanging out a little more, and then she had to move back up north to continue school. We FaceTime almost every day since she's been up there. She's been up there for 5 or 6 days now. One time on the call, I jokingly called her out for being on Insta while calling, so then I hopped on Roblox. She asked me about Roblox. She's heard of it, but never played it. And I explained it to her and how there's many games/genres, and she wanted to play the cute games. She had a meeting about her dorm to go to, so she planned to call me later so we can play. This was a devastating time. BC, her meeting lasted 2 hours. She thought it was going to be 30 minutes, and she had to rush to the food hub and quickly swallow her food. BC, they closed in 10 minutes. She felt sick afterwards, so she walked around the campus to digest her food while listening to music, then called to get her seat in her studio class. She ended up getting to her dorm at midnight. We called it around 7 to 7:30, left the call at 8, and I was dead asleep, and we never got to play. That last story was jokes. I wasn't really devastated, but I really was thinking about the game we were talking about, and did stay awake to see if she called. She didn't, and I had to sleep for work tomorrow. It did kind of hurt, and I know I shouldn't feel like that. I know I don't like her, and I don't want to have a relationship with her. But deep down, maybe I still have feelings for her. It's selfish, and I know how selfish I've been. I don't know why I still feel like this. I don't want to feel like this.